The dust kicked up in swirls as Rosalie Blackburn stepped onto the porch of her family's bakery, the scent of fresh, baked goods trailing behind her like a faithful companion. Colorado Territory, 1873, a place where life moved with the pace of the nearby Arkansas River, sometimes gentle, sometimes rushing with unexpected force. She wiped flour-covered hands on her apron and gazed down the main street of Cottonwood Springs, wondering if today would be the day he'd return. Quinn Harrington had promised he would, and in the 3 years she'd known him, he'd never broken a promise. The morning sun cast long shadows across the dirt road as Rosalie opened the bakery, the same routine she'd maintained since her parents had passed from the fever 2 winters ago. At 22, she'd become the town's primary baker. Her cinnamon rolls and sourdough bred the talk of the county. The bell above the door jingled as her first customer entered. "Morning, Miss Rosalie," said Walter Jenkins, the town's aging postmaster. "Got any of those honey biscuits today?" "Fresh from the oven, Mr. Jenkins." She smiled, retrieving a paper bag from behind the counter. "How's Mrs. Jenkins faring with her rheumatism?" "Better since Doc Miller gave her that new tincture." "Say, heard anything from that cowboy of yours?" Rosalie's smile faltered slightly. "Not since his last letter 3 months ago. The cattle drive to Dodge City should be finished by now." Walter nodded sympathetically. "Mail's been slow with the trouble up north. I'm sure he's just delayed." After Walter left, Rosalie turned to the window, her eyes drifting toward the hills beyond town. Quinn had ridden out with the Hammond outfit last spring, promising to return with enough money to help expand her bakery. At 27, he'd been working cattle drives since he was 18, but this time he'd sworn it would be his last. "We'll have a proper future," he'd told her, his green eyes crinkling at the corners when he smiled. "No more wandering." The days passed in a blur of flour, sugar, and waiting. Each morning, Rosalie would walk to the white picket gate that separated her bakery from the main road, scanning the horizon for any sign of riders. The town had grown accustomed to seeing her there, a silent sentinel with hope in her eyes. 2 weeks after her conversation with Walter, Rosalie was kneading dough for the day's bread when she heard a commotion outside. Wiping her hands, she stepped to the window. A group of riders was coming down the main street, dust clouds billowing behind them. Her heart leaped to her throat as she recognized the Hammond brand on the horses. She rushed outside, not bothering with her bonnet, the late summer sun warm on her face. The riders slowed as they approached the general store, and Rosalie scanned their faces frantically. Her breath caught when she spotted him at the back of the group, his familiar wide-brimmed hat pulled low. Quinn saw her at the same moment. He broke away from the others, spurring his horse toward the bakery. Rosalie ran to the gate, unlatching it with trembling fingers. He dismounted in one fluid motion, his boots raising small puffs of dust as he landed. "Rosalie," he breathed, standing before her with his hat in his hands. His face was more weathered than she remembered, a new scar along his jaw, but his eyes were the same green as spring grass after rain. "You came back," she whispered, suddenly conscious of the flower on her cheek, the wild state of her auburn hair. Quinn stepped closer, a smile spreading across his face as he inhaled deeply. "You smell like cookies and love," he said, the words carrying the weight of a cherished ritual. It had started as a joke during their courtship. The first time Quinn had come to call on her after her parents died, he'd found her crying over a batch of burned cookies. "Don't worry," he'd said, taking her flour-covered hands in his. "You still smell like cookies and love." Every morning after that, when he would meet her at the gate before riding out to the Hammond ranch, he'd repeat those words like a promise. Rosalie laughed, tears pricking her eyes. And you smell like trail dust and cattle." "That's not very romantic," he chuckled, but then his expression sobered. "I got something to tell you, Rose." Fear gripped her heart. Had he changed his mind, found another woman in Dodge City? But before she could spiral further, he reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small leather pouch. "The drive paid better than expected," he said, pouring gold coins into his palm. "Enough to expand your bakery and then some." His eyes met hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Enough to start our life together if you'll still have me." "If I'll still Quinn Harrington. I've been waiting at this gate every morning for months," he grinned, sliding the coins back into the pouch. "I need to settle accounts with Mr. Hammond first, but I'll be back tonight. We have plans to make." Rosalie watched him ride toward the Hammond ranch, her heart lighter than it had been in months. That evening she baked his favorite apple pie, the cinnamon-scented kitchen a testament to her joy. When Quinn returned, they sat on her porch swing, planning their future while stars emerged in the darkening sky. "I was thinking," Quinn said, his arm warm around her shoulders, "what if we don't just expand the bakery? What if we add a café? Some place for folks to sit and enjoy your baking proper like." Rosalie turned to him, surprised. "A café in Cottonwood Springs? Why not? Town's growing. The silver mine up north is bringing in new folks every month. They'll need somewhere to gather to feel at home." His enthusiasm was infectious, and Rosalie found herself sketching plans on butcher paper spread across her kitchen table. Quinn's practical suggestions complemented her culinary ambitions, and by midnight, they had the beginnings of a dream taking shape. As Quinn prepared to leave, he hesitated at the door. "Rose, there's something else." His expression turned serious. "During the drive, we had trouble. Rustlers hit us north of the Cimarron. I had to defend the herd." Rosalie's hand flew to her mouth. "Were you hurt?" "No, but I hurt others." "One man died." The admission seemed to pain him physically. "I've never killed before, Rose. I keep seeing his face." She reached for his hands, holding them firmly. "You did what you had to protect yourself, the herd, your friends." Quinn nodded, but the shadow remained in his eyes. "I'm done with that life now. No more drives, no more guns. Just you and me and our bakery café." The next morning, Quinn arrived at her gate before sunrise, the sky still purple with lingering night. "You smell like cookies and love," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "It's 5 in the morning. I haven't baked anything yet," Rosalie replied, laughing despite herself. "Doesn't matter. It's in your skin now." He kissed her softly, then pulled back with a mischievous grin. "I have a surprise. Get your shawl." Curious, Rosalie followed him to where 2 horses waited. "Quinn Harrington, where are we going at this ungodly hour? You'll see." He helped her mount the gentle mare he'd borrowed from the Hammond stable, then led them out of town, following the creek that fed the valley. As they rode, the first rays of sunlight spilled over the eastern mountains, illuminating a landscape transformed by dawn. Dew sparkled on prairie grass, and wildflowers nodded in the gentle morning breeze. After half an hour, Quinn stopped at a rise overlooking the valley. Below them lay a stretch of land where the creek widened, tall cottonwoods providing shade. "What do you think?" Quinn asked, his eyes bright with excitement. Rosalie looked from the beautiful vista to his eager face. "About what exactly, this land?" 5 acres with water rights. "Old man Hammond selling it cheap since his sons moved to Denver. It's close enough to town for the bakery, but far enough for some peace." Understanding dawned. "You want to build here, our home?" Quinn nodded, suddenly looking uncertain. "Too far from town." "I know you like being close to people, but I thought." Rosalie cut him off by practically leaping from her horse to embrace him. "It's perfect. The morning light, the creek, the view of the mountains." Relief washed over his face. "There's good soil, too." We could have a garden, grow some of what we need for the bakery. They spent the morning walking the property, Quinn pointing out where he envisioned their house, a barn, a chicken coop. Rosalie added her own dreams: an herb garden, raspberry bushes along the fence line, apple trees behind the house. We'll need to save for a while longer, Quinn cautioned. Building materials aren't cheap, and there's the bakery expansion to consider. We'll manage, Rosalie said confidently. We always do. When they returned to town, reality intruded in the form of Elijah Hammond waiting outside the bakery. The rancher's face was grim, his gray-streaked beard failing to hide his frown. "Been looking for you, Harrington," he said gruffly. "Got trouble?" Quinn tensed beside Rosalie. "What kind of trouble?" "Malone's in town." Hammond's eyes shifted to Rosalie. "Best go inside, Miss Blackburn. Men's business." Rosalie bristled. "If it concerns Quinn, it concerns me." "Rose," Quinn said softly, "please, I'll explain later." Reluctantly, she retreated to the bakery porch, watching as the two men spoke in low voices. Quinn's shoulders grew increasingly rigid, his hands clenching into fists. Finally, Hammond clapped him on the shoulder and departed. Quinn stood motionless in the street for a long moment before turning toward the bakery. "What's wrong?" Rosalie asked as soon as he was within earshot. "Who's Malone?" Quinn's expression was darker than she'd ever seen it. "Thomas Malone, brother of the rustler I shot." The implication hit Rosalie like a physical blow. "He's here for revenge. So it seems. According to Hammond, he's been asking all over town about me." Quinn ran a hand through his hair. "He's staying at the Cottonwood Saloon, drinking and making threats. We should tell Sheriff Davis." "And say what?" "That a man might be planning to kill me. There's no law against buying drinks and talking big." Quinn's jaw tightened. "No, this is something I need to handle myself." Fear wrapped cold fingers around Rosalie's heart. "You said you were done with that life. No more guns, remember." "I meant it, Rose, but if Malone forces my hand, then we'll leave," she said desperately. "Go somewhere else, start over." Quinn's expression softened. "Run away, that's not living, that's just waiting for trouble to find you somewhere else." He cupped her face gently. "I'm not looking for a fight, but I won't hide either." The next few days passed in uneasy tension. Quinn helped Rosalie in the bakery, the two of them working side by side, measuring flour, kneading dough, discussing plans for their future with forced cheerfulness. But Rosalie noticed how Quinn's eyes constantly scanned the street through the window, how he positioned himself between her and the door whenever the bell jangled. On the fourth day, Sheriff Davis paid them a visit, his weathered face grave beneath his gray mustache. "Thought you should know, Harrington. Malone's been bragging he's going to call you out tonight. Says you shot his brother in the back." Quinn's expression hardened. "Bill Malone was facing me when I shot him. He drew first. Any witnesses to back that up?" 3 other drovers saw it, but they've all headed home to Texas by now. The sheriff sighed. "I'll try to keep the peace, but if he calls you out formal like, there's not much I can legally do to stop it." After Davis left, Rosalie clutched Quinn's arm. "You can't face him. He wants to kill you." "I know." Quinn's voice was calm, but his eyes were troubled. "I'll try reasoning with him first. Bill was breaking the law, threatening our lives. His brother must know that deep down." "Men bent on revenge rarely listen to reason," Rosalie said bitterly. As dusk approached, Quinn prepared to leave. "Stay inside, lock the doors," he instructed, checking his revolver with practiced hands. "This won't take long." "Don't go," she pleaded, tears threatening. "We've waited so long to be together. Don't throw it away like this." Quinn holstered his gun and pulled her close. "I'm not throwing anything away, I'm protecting our future." He kissed her forehead. "I love you, Rosalie Blackburn." I love you too, she whispered against his chest. After he left, Rosalie paced the bakery, unable to settle. The thought of Quinn facing a gunfight alone was unbearable. Then she remembered something her father had once told her. Sometimes a woman's presence can prevent men from doing foolish things. Pride makes it hard to back down when it's just men, but a lady changes the equation. Making up her mind, Rosalie grabbed her shawl and headed for the Cottonwood Saloon. The streets were oddly empty for early evening, most townspeople apparently aware of the brewing confrontation. As she neared the saloon, she heard raised voices. "Face me like a man, Harrington." A harsh voice carried from the dusty street in front of the saloon. "Or are you only brave enough to shoot a man when he's surrounded by your friends?" Rosalie hurried forward, heart pounding. Quinn stood in the middle of the street, facing a stocky man with a fiery red beard. Both had their hands hovering near their gun belts. A crowd watched from the sidewalks and saloon porch, their faces displaying a mix of apprehension and morbid excitement. "I don't want to fight you, Malone," Quinn was saying, his voice level. "Your brother was stealing cattle and shot at my friends. I did what I had to." "Liar," Malone spat. "Bill wasn't no rustler. He was working for the Bar T when your outfit accused him." "The Bar T?" Quinn looked genuinely confused. "We caught him red-handed with Hammond cattle. He was wearing a bandana, but I'd swear, Thomas Malone." Rosalie's voice cut through the tension as she pushed through the crowd. "Stop this foolishness right now." Quinn's head whipped around, his face paling. "Rose, get back inside." But Rosalie marched forward, positioning herself halfway between the two men. "Mr. Malone, I understand your grief, but this won't bring your brother back." Malone's eyes narrowed, his hand still near his gun. "This ain't your business, lady." "It became my business when you threatened the man I love." She took another step toward him. "Did you know your brother well, Mr. Malone? Were you close?" The unexpected question seemed to throw him off balance. "Close enough. He was family." "When did you last see him alive?" Malone shifted uncomfortably. "Been about 2 years. He headed west for work while I stayed in Missouri." "So you don't actually know what he was doing out here?" Rosalie pressed. "You're just taking the word of whoever told you he wasn't rustling." "Got a letter from his friend Parker," Malone growled. "Said Bill was working honest for the Bar T when Hammond's men gunned him down." Sheriff Davis stepped forward from the crowd. "Parker, Sam Parker." When Malone nodded, Davis exchanged glances with Quinn. "Parker's no friend to anyone but himself. He was arrested last month for running a rustling operation. Blamed everyone but himself when we caught him." Uncertainty flickered across Malone's face. "You're just trying to protect your own," he said, but his conviction seemed to waver. "Mr. Malone," Rosalie said gently, "I bake cookies and bread. I'm not part of any cattle outfit or ranch alliance. I have no reason to lie to you. But I know Quinn Harrington, and he's an honorable man. He wouldn't shoot anyone without just cause." The tension in the air slowly began to dissipate. Malone's hand moved away from his gun belt. "How do I know what's true?" he asked, more to himself than anyone else. Sheriff Davis approached cautiously. "I've got Parker in my jail. You can talk to him yourself, see if his story holds up under questioning." After a long moment, Malone nodded stiffly. "I'll hear what he has to say." He fixed Quinn with a hard stare. "But this ain't over until I'm satisfied." As Davis escorted Malone toward the jail, Quinn hurried to Rosalie's side. "What were you thinking?" he demanded, his relief making his voice sharper than intended. "He could have shot you." "He wasn't going to shoot an unarmed woman in front of half the town," Rosalie retorted. "And I wasn't going to let you die over a misunderstanding." Quinn's anger melted into admiration tinged with exasperation. "You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met." "Lucky for you," she said, taking his arm. Now let's go home before anyone else decides to shoot at you." The next morning, they received word from Sheriff Davis. After confronting Parker, who broke down and admitted to lying about Bill Malone's involvement in the rustling, Thomas Malone had left town on the early stage, leaving a curt message of apology with the sheriff. "Reckon that's as close to I was wrong as a proud man gets," Quinn remarked, relief evident in his posture. With the threat gone, they threw themselves into their plans. Quinn took a job at the lumber mill to save money faster, working from dawn until mid-afternoon, then helping Rosalie with bakery renovations. Every morning, no matter how early he had to leave, he would meet her at the gate, cup her face in his calloused hands, and say, "You smell like cookies and love." By fall, the expanded bakery was ready. They'd added 4 small tables by the window, cheerful curtains, and a larger oven that allowed Rosalie to increase production. The café side of the business proved immediately popular, especially with the ladies of Cottonwood Springs, who found it a respectable place to gather and exchange news. Mrs. Hammond asked if we could host her quilting circle on Thursday afternoons, Rosalie told Quinn one evening as they closed up. "She says the light in here is better than at the church hall." Quinn smiled, sweeping the wooden floor with practiced strokes. "See, I told you folks needed a place like this." He paused, leaning on his broom. "Rose, I've been thinking, maybe we should get married sooner rather than later." Rosalie nearly dropped the tray she was carrying. "Are you proposing to me while sweeping floors, Quinn Harrington?" He set the broom aside, crossing to take her hands. "I'm proposing because I don't want to wait anymore. We've saved enough to start building on our land. By spring, we could have the house finished. But you said it would take another year at least." Quinn's eyes crinkled with mischief. "I may have been conservative in my estimates, and I may have been putting in extra hours at the mill that you don't know about." Rosalie's heart swelled. "Yes," she said simply. "Let's get married, as soon as possible." They were wed 2 weeks later in the small white church on the hill, Rosalie in a cream-colored dress she'd saved from her mother, Quinn in a new suit that made him look both uncomfortable and handsome. The entire town turned out to celebrate, filling the bakery café afterward for a reception that lasted well into the evening. That night, in the small apartment above the bakery that would be their temporary home until the house was built, Rosalie lay in Quinn's arms, watching moonlight spill through the window. "Happy, Mrs. Harrington," Quinn murmured against her hair. "More than I can say," she replied, turning to face him. "Though I'll miss hearing you say I smell like cookies and love every morning at the gate." Quinn laughed softly. "Who says I'm going to stop? I'll say it every morning for the rest of our lives." True to his word, as construction began on their home, Quinn greeted Rosalie each dawn with the same phrase. Through winter snows and spring rains, the tradition continued, a touchstone in their busy lives. The house took shape on the hill above the creek, a sturdy 2-story structure with a wide porch perfect for watching sunsets. They moved in just as summer arrived, the wildflowers blooming across their land in a riot of color. Quinn had surprised Rosalie with a kitchen twice the size of the one in the bakery apartment, with a massive stone hearth and ample counter space. "Room for experimenting," he explained as he showed her around. "Maybe writing that cookbook you've talked about." Balancing life at home with running the bakery café meant long days and early mornings, but they developed a rhythm that worked. Quinn continued at the mill, but reduced his hours once they'd settled their building debts. He took over deliveries for the bakery, bringing bread and pastries to outlying ranches and the mining camp that had sprung up 10 miles north. Their first anniversary arrived with another surprise. "I'm expecting," Rosalie told Quinn one evening as they sat on their porch swing, watching fireflies rise from the meadow grass. The look of wonder that spread across his face was something Rosalie would treasure forever. A baby when, late winter, according to Mrs. Miller, she's fairly certain. Quinn whooped with joy, lifting Rosalie from the swing and spinning her gently. A family of our own. As Rosalie's pregnancy progressed, Quinn became increasingly protective, insisting on handling more of the bakery work despite her protests that she was perfectly capable. "You're carrying precious cargo," he'd say, steering her to a chair. "Let me take care of things for a while." The town watched their happiness with affection, and business flourished as Cottonwood Springs continued to grow. The silver mine brought prosperity, and new families arrived monthly, many becoming regular customers at Rosalie's bakery and café. When winter came, bringing with it heavy snows that isolated their hilltop home, Quinn moved them temporarily back to the bakery apartment. "Just until the baby comes," he insisted. "I'm not risking you going into labor during a blizzard with no doctor for miles." Their son was born on a cold February night, arriving after hours of labor that left Rosalie exhausted but triumphant. "Samuel," she whispered, looking down at the tiny face with Quinn's green eyes. "After my father." Quinn cradled his son with awe, his strong hands suddenly seeming too large and rough for such a delicate task. "Samuel Quinn Harrington," he agreed. "He's perfect, Rose." Life with a newborn brought new challenges and joys. Rosalie hired Jenny Morrison, the blacksmith's daughter, to help at the bakery while she recovered. Quinn built a cradle that could be moved from their home to the bakery, allowing Samuel to be nearby regardless of where they were working. By the time Samuel was crawling, Rosalie was pregnant again. "Are we crazy?" she asked Quinn one night as they lay in bed, Samuel asleep in his crib nearby. "Two babies under 2 years, crazy about each other," Quinn replied, kissing her softly. "And we're building a legacy, Rose. A family, a business, a home, everything we dreamed about." Their daughter Lily arrived in the summer, a serene baby with Rosalie's auburn hair and calm demeanor. Unlike her energetic brother, who was now toddling determinedly around the bakery, charming customers with his sunny smile, Lily was content to observe the world from her cradle. As the children grew, so did the family business. Quinn added a delivery wagon painted with Harrington Family Bakery on the side, a source of immense pride for Samuel, who at 4 declared his intention to drive it himself someday. Rosalie finally wrote the cookbook she'd dreamed of, a collection of recipes and stories that the local newspaper printed in installments. 5 years after Lily's birth, when Cottonwood Springs had grown enough to warrant a proper school and a second church, Rosalie found herself standing at the gate of their home one morning, watching Quinn teach 7-year-old Samuel how to saddle a pony. "Careful with the cinch," Quinn instructed, his patient voice carrying on the clear morning air. "Not too tight, not too loose. There you go." Lily sat on the porch steps, her doll forgotten as she watched her brother and father with undisguised envy. At 5, she was already insisting she needed a pony of her own, a request Quinn seemed inclined to grant despite Rosalie's concerns about her age. The scene before her family, their home, the thriving business in town sometimes felt like a dream too good to be true. From orphaned baker to wife, mother, and successful businesswoman, Rosalie's path had not been without challenges, but the joy outweighed the struggles. Quinn looked up, catching her eye across the yard. He said something to Samuel, then walked toward her, his stride as confident and steady as it had been the day they met. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, reaching the gate where she stood. Rosalie smiled, the years falling away in that moment. "Good morning, Cowboy." Quinn leaned close, breathing deeply, his ritual unchanged by time. "You smell like cookies and love," he whispered, the familiar words carrying the weight of their shared history, their enduring bond. "And you smell like horses and hay," she replied, laughing as he pulled her into an embrace. "Not very romantic," he echoed his words from long ago, his eyes crinkling with humor and devotion. "I wouldn't have it any other way," Rosalie said, standing on tiptoe to kiss him. As their lips met, Samuel made gagging noises from across the yard while Lily clapped her hands in delight. This, Rosalie thought, was what happiness felt like, not the absence of problems or challenges, but the presence of love strong enough to weather any storm. A love that had begun with a simple phrase at a gate and grown into a life more beautiful than she could have imagined.